The first and most important thing is that you have to have a hook at the start. In an email, it's a subject line. If you don't have a good subject line, you could have a bar of gold inside the email, but if nobody opens the email, they don't get the bar of gold. So the subject line is key. You absolutely have to have something that is curiosity based. And then it's the same with an Instagram post. If you're doing a static post with a picture, that first line is oh so important, because if you don't get that right, then nobody does anything else other than they like they give a little heart on your picture and then they move on to the next thing. And that is something that's very important. I have this one that I did recently, and it's a picture of me shirtless with my baby like yelling at me. And we have a daughter that's 15 months old now. All that you see this picture of me, and I just come back from the gym and I have a Starbucks and a cupcake, and my baby wants the cupcake. And then the first line says, maybe this was stupid, but at 47, ... And that had a really good response rate, because if you got an email that said, maybe this was stupid, you would go, maybe what was stupid? I better open this email. What do you mean? What was stupid? Was it stupid? Was it smart? Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I gotta open this up. And, especially like if you would get an email like that from a friend. So for anybody listening, if you do email marketing, if you write Instagram captions, how would you get your friends' attention? If you want, they're a busy person, they get a lot of emails, and you really you could write their name in all caps and have 10 exclamation points, but you can't do that with email marketing. But, so you have to have that curiosity. So we always start that curiosity.
All right, welcome back to the Better Human podcast. Today we got Craig Ballantyne. How you doing, brother?
Really, really well. Thank you. Looking forward to this.
We've been trying to schedule this for a while. I think we had this on the books maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And as you know, entrepreneurship has that wonderful ability to throw wrenches in schedules. But I'm glad we're here now, man, because we're going to chat personal development. You're an amazing coach and entrepreneur. So we're going to pick your brain, get your insights, get your tips, get your tricks, and hopefully the audience is going to walk away with another toolbox, as we say.
Sounds good. I like that.
All right. So why don't we kick off, man? Where did this world begin for you? Personal development, entrepreneurship, and the work that you're doing today.
Well, I wish I had a story of, a lemonade stand at age, 3.5 or something, but I don't. I wasn't necessarily an entrepreneur from the get-go. I grew up in Canada on a farm, small town boy, thought if I could just get a job in pro sports, that would be the be all end all. And then I got lucky. My life came around, my education came around the time the internet came around. And the next thing you know, I was not creating the websites, but creating content for websites and selling workout programs and writing for Men's Health magazine. And I spent 15 years as a fitness entrepreneur selling workout programs on the internet, like possibly the world's best career for, someone who's slightly introverted and just likes to sit in front of a computer. And so it was really fantastic. And then I got a lot done, and people would always ask me, how the heck do you get so much done? And I started writing about how I got so much done. And that was my transition into what we do today, which is help entrepreneurs and their businesses build systems for personal productivity, for marketing efficiency, for sales efficiency, for all that sort of stuff that just helps a business tighten up the ship or turn the ship around sometimes, and just help the entrepreneur kind of get out of working in the business all the time and to get their life back, and really just having what we call the perfect life. And so that's how I got here.
That's amazing. They say if you could sell gym memberships, you could sell anything. That's a tough sell.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, for me, I fortunately never did have to sell a gym membership. Yeah. I only sold ebooks, essentially. I remember I made my very first sale online, Greg, on January 28th, 2001. I sold a Word document for $59 US dollars when I was a graduate student in Canada. And so that was like $100 at the time on the exchange rate. And I sold it through PayPal, right? So a Word document through PayPal for $100 that I'd already created for some of my friends. And I just thought, man, this is I just won the lottery essentially, because then I was able to do that email marketing and, making money with friends for the next 15 years. It was just the dream.
Back then, the joke is gym memberships are hard to sell, but the selling online, that PDF ebook, that's early days. Now that you're almost like what's the word? The trailblazer in that. No one was doing that.
Yeah, there was a guy who was more successful than me that I got coaching from. His name was Tom Venuto, and he had this book called "Burn the Muscle." No, "Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle." Definitely not "Burn the Muscle." And he was my mentor. And there was about 20 of us. I would send an email out for the Joe's program. Joe would send an email out for my program, and there was like 20 of us. And I thought that was the whole world of fitness for a long time, and it was just really, really great. And now I look back on it and go, man, I was just so lucky to get into this. And then I was one of the first fitness people to put stuff on YouTube in 2007, and we have lots of views there. But nowadays the whole fitness online world is an entirely different beast, and I've been out of it for about 8 years now. And I think that there's still a huge opportunity for it, because if you walk outside, unfortunately, in most of North America, it's almost as if we just haven't been doing anything for fitness for a long time, because unfortunately, a lot of people still need the message. And so there's huge opportunity for it. And for anybody listening to this and thinking, oh my goodness, my business, industry, marketplace is so crowded. Well, listen, I was in one of the most crowded industries for a long time, and there's always room for great ideas and adding value. So never let, crowded marketplace stop you from getting out there.
Yeah. You ever read the book or hear the book Blue Ocean Strategy?
Yeah. The funny thing is I never finished that book, but I got through it. I started it.
I never finished it either, right? But it's a thick book. I mean, that was written by 2 PhDs. It was originally a PhD thesis that they converted into a book. But really, the concept of it is what you just described, which is there's always going to be crowded spaces. There's always going to be a crowded marketplace. What you do to create your blue ocean within that space is important. So we live in a world now where like digital marketing is the way we communicate and stuff. So how much are you still leaning on some of those traditional practices, your email marketing practices, your social, like how do you go out and do that today?
Email marketing, we still do a lot of emailing every single day. And probably the most important thing for everybody listening is that the way that we use email marketing is very similar to the way that I do Instagram content creation, YouTube content creation. And it comes down to like kind of like 4 or 5 steps to it. And the first and most important thing is that you have to have a hook at the start. In an email, it's a subject line. If you don't have a good subject line, you could have a bar of gold inside the email, but if nobody opens the email, they don't get the bar of gold. So the subject line is key. You absolutely have to have something that is curiosity based. And then it's the same with an Instagram post. If you're doing a static post with a picture, that first line is oh so important, because if you don't get that right, then nobody does anything else other than they like they give a little heart on your picture and then they move on to the next thing. And that is something that's very important. I have this one that I did recently, and it's a picture of me shirtless with my baby, like yelling at me. And we have a daughter that's 15 months old now. And the first line of that, all that you see this picture of me, and I just come back from the gym, and I have a Starbucks and a cupcake, and my baby wants the cupcake. And then the first line says, maybe this was stupid, but at 47 ... And that had a really good response rate, because if you got an email that said, maybe this was stupid, you would go, maybe what was stupid? I better open this email. Like, maybe what do you mean? What was stupid? Was it stupid? Was it smart? Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I gotta open this up. And, especially like if you would get an email like that from a friend. So for anybody listening, if you do email marketing, if you write Instagram captions, how would you get your friends' attention? If you want, they're a busy person and they get a lot of emails, and you really you could like write their name in all caps and have 10 exclamation points, but you can't do that with email marketing. But, so you have to have that curiosity. So we always start that curiosity. Then we kind of get into a little bit of personal stuff, not a personal stuff, but like 2 lines. I'm like, I was at Starbucks the other day and I ran into this woman who couldn't understand why I ordered a chai latte. And then you teach them something. Well, maybe it's a fitness email, right? Like, oh, well, I discovered that chai tea has fat. I'm making this up, but has fat burning properties. And as long as you have chai tea once a day, you're going to, increase your metabolism, and you're going to have a greater chance of losing weight without having to change your diet massively. I'm making this up. So please don't everyone go and buy chai lattes thinking you're going to lose weight. And then we have, so we have that hook. We have the personal intro. We do a little bit of teaching. We teach them something that's valuable, where they're like, it was worth me opening this email because I learned something today about chai lattes. And then the next is social proof. So when I shared this with my client, Susan, and she implemented the chai latte a day for 28 days, there's going to be a new diet book out there soon. Chai latte a day for 28 days, she lost 4 pounds of stubborn fat that she hadn't been able to get rid of in the last 10 years. And then after the social proof is the call to action. You tell them what you want to do next. So click the link below to get my ebook, The Chai Latte Diet, or click the link below to go to this YouTube video where I explain more, or whatever it is. So it's get the hook, connect with them personally, get them hooked, imagining things and getting their brain working, then teach them something, then use some social proof that proves it didn't just work for you. And then 5, have a call to action at the end. And, so I use that in an Instagram post. I'll use that in a YouTube video. I'll use that formula for email marketing. I'll use that formula sort of for a sales letter. And it's just super easy for someone who hears about digital marketing and goes, I don't even know where to start because that sounds insane. It's too overwhelming. Well, no, it's not. If you could sit down with a friend over a chai latte, a beer, a Cosmo, or, a coffee and tell somebody a story for a minute and a half, then you can do digital marketing.
Yeah. I get tired with, or overwhelmed, I think is a better word when it comes down to digital marketing. Exactly what you said. Like, what is the hook? And then sort of the social proof, that's easy. And the call to action, that's easy, but sort of what's the hook? And, I work with my team now, the social team, and they'll prompt me. They'll be like, all right, here's your hook. We need you to open the video up with this line, right? And we need to speak to it. And I would push back on it. I'd be like, no, fuck off. Like, you know what? Like, let me just do my thing. And they kept on saying, like, listen, it's appreciate that you want to do it this way, but there's a design to this stuff. There's a formula to this stuff. And the exercises, we're trying to get people to listen to the actual lesson. And we can't get them to listen to the actual lesson until we engage them in the first hook, right? I remember
you have to put it's very much like a book title, right? Like the 4-Hour Work Week, if it was called anything else, it wouldn't have sold as many copies. Think and Grow Rich. I was told this story, actually. Tell you a quick story, Greg, from this guy, Dan Kennedy, who's a marketer. He told me that up until 3 hours before the deadline for, submitting the book, Napoleon Hill was going to call Think and Grow Rich, use your noodle to get the boodle. And then he went and had a nap, and he woke up with this great insight. His subconscious mind did the work while he was sleeping, and he thought, think and grow rich. Now, so I mean, the content of the book is no different with 2 different titles, but the title of the book is a game changer. And as much as, I don't like to have to work so hard on a hook either. I just want to deliver great content, but you have to work as hard on the hook as you do on the content. Otherwise, it's like fishing. If you go out with literally just a hook, you're not going to catch stuff. You have to have the fly fishing thing, and you have to have the thing that gets the attention. Otherwise, you're not going to catch any fish.
And you got different bait for different types of fishing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Versus, fishing with dynamite.
Yeah, exactly.
So back in the day, we used to run a lot of ads in the newspaper. Right? So you're from Canada, so
sure.
And Global Mail. And we ran an ad, and the ad would say something like, presentation skills challenging. The phone would not ring. Right. And then we'd run an ad with something like almost like, did you almost throw up in front of your boss trying to give that presentation? And bang, the phone rang. And I remember we ran this one ad that worked for years and years and years. And it's an image of this old, cruddy, critical, stern looking, just real bastard of a boss. Right. And it said, if you are walking into this every single day, you should be running into us. And we were selling an assertiveness program. That ad killed it for years and years and years and years. And you would know whether that hook would work, right? And this was back in the newspaper. This was print, right? So let's jump in. Let's switch gears. So entrepreneurship, man. I mean, this is what you do. This is what you teach. I mean, this is what you help people become really effective with. I love what you said earlier, which was like, I was never an entrepreneur. And I'll just paraphrase, I kind of fell into becoming an entrepreneur. And we live in a world now where people want to be an entrepreneur. It's like, it's like this badge of honor or this brand that they carry. So what does an entrepreneur mean to you? I mean, how would we define it for people?
Well, you really have to be with the mindset of always being scrappy and going out there and always people like use the phrase, you got to go out and hunt and you keep what you kill. And it's a little crude, but it is true because, I'm unemployable, which is why I know one of the many reasons I'm an entrepreneur. And I also want freedom of my time and my schedule and that sort of stuff. And a lot of people aren't great employees, and they do want freedom and all that sort of stuff, but they will procrastinate on anything that involves the selling aspect. And you can't be the entrepreneur if you aren't going to go out there and hustle for your lunch. And that's like the intangible that separates people who, are willing, people can work hard, but if they're working on stuff that doesn't generate revenue for the business, you're not going to have a business. And, people can be, have good schedules and they can be creative. But again, unless they're out there selling stuff, you're still not going to be an entrepreneur. So you have to be willing to go out there and you have to be willing to get a no. And you get the no, you get punched in the face and you go back and you do it again. And, we just had 2 clients come into our coaching program and, the one referred the other. And so the first one that came in, she was all in on the coaching program from the start. She had a relentless work ethic. She had a big why, a reason that she was going to go out and take massive action every day for her family. And the woman that she referred to us doesn't have that hunger, doesn't have a big why, isn't willing to do the extra work, isn't willing to go and get the rejection, is just kind of complacent. And it's just night and day in the success of their business and also in their attitude towards, mentorship and getting help. Right. And so when it comes back to the entrepreneurs, you just have to have a bit of hustle in you, preferably a lot of hustle in you, but not meaning that you have to go and work 24/7, but that you're going to go out there and make the sale, which is the oxygen of the business, because most people are just either too scared to ask for the sale, or they're too they're just too interested in doing all the other stuff like the organization and the websites and all that sort of stuff that isn't really entrepreneurship. It's more organization. So that's the big difference. And right now I'm reading a book by Sam Zell, who just passed away, and his book is called Am I Being Too Subtle? And he says one of the most important things that he learned at a young age is being able to be indifferent to rejection. And most people are not able to be indifferent to rejection. So that's why, the person who's a successful entrepreneur is going to hear no a lot. The person who is going to either quit entrepreneurship or never really succeed is going to take no personally, and then it's going to stop them from moving forward. So those are some of the things that you definitely see as differences in successful people.
I like the way you defined entrepreneurship, saying the beginning of this is sales. And I agree with that entirely. In fact, I only described myself as an entrepreneur many years later. But my number one focus was go out and sell. I remember I started a tech training side to the business where we were Apple's training center in all of North America. So if you touched an Apple computer between 2004 to about 2013 on a professional standpoint, an audio producer or video editor or production house, broadcast, even IT. And we were in Canada, helped train the geniuses at the Apple stores originally. Started like this. I walked into the office one day and there was a guy there that we hired to do video editing and teach us how to use the video editing software. Fast forward this whole conversation, he's on the phone with Apple and they're looking to be a training center. I'm like, let me take this on. How we did that was I went out and sold the first gig. We didn't have computers. We didn't have an office to train them in. I went and borrowed computers from people. I was like, can I borrow your computer for a day? Because we got to teach. And the trainer, the certified person came in and trained. And that's how we began. We began with one fucking computer. And then I went and I bought 2. And then 4. And then eventually we had a lab of about 50 or training rooms of about 55 machines and offices across Canada. And it was very exciting. The reason that business we sort of decided to sort of exit was about 2013, was you saw the writing on the wall with YouTube learning and the .com and LinkedIn learning, which we were now starting to compete with online programming. And you can't You can't compete with a $5,000 live program versus a $99 online program, specifically in that type of market. But it was a
Yeah.
good one for a long time. But
Yeah.
that's how we started. We literally started with nothing. I was like, okay, I can go and sell. So one thing I know I can do is I can go and sell.
And that's what you have to do. And it's scrappy. And, you know,
Right.
when I was selling my fitness programs online, like, remember, it was a Word document through PayPal. It wasn't a fancy book. It wasn't a DVD I went out and spent money on creating. It was valuable to somebody, but it was janky. It was, you know, paper clips and bubble gum holding the entire system together. In fact, my first email list was kept on a Word document. So I had built an email list of 3,000 people by 2001. Wow. And I started my email newsletter in 1999 before I knew how to sell anything. And I didn't have any email software. So I was sending out my email newsletter to 3,000 people through Hotmail, and you could only BCC 50 people at a time. Right. So it took me 75 minutes to send out the 60 emails, you know, copy and paste the newsletter into another email, and then copy and paste 50 emails addresses from my Word document into the BCC, hit send, and repeat until I had sent out 3,000 emails. Like, that's like the hustle kind of, you'll do anything to move ahead and figure things out that an entrepreneur must have.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of that email doing the same thing, which is just forcing the system to send out the mail. And what's so funny is putting it back in the day in BCC, the email actually still went through, right? I mean, that would not fly today. It wouldn't go through email servers. You know, I think to your point, back to entrepreneurship, where people focus on the wrong thing, and I've seen this happen time and time and time again, where people will focus on building it, right? Let's get the brochures, let's get the website, let's get the office, let's do new carpets, let's paint the walls, let's make sure that there's all the things are in place. And I'll share this with you. I hired someone to come and be the head of sales. This was last year. Anyway, they're no longer with the company. So I woke up at the end of the year and there was no sales. Now, during the year, so many things were happening. And my mistake as the manager was I just was not holding the reporting and the sales leadership meeting to heart, right? Mm-hmm. Very distracted. New brochures, new website, new marketing person, right? New brand ambassadors, new everything. And at the end of the year, I said, where the fuck are the sales? You've spent all this time. What are you doing? Right? And I realized in that moment, I'm like, here we've got someone who intended to do a really good job, but unfortunately just focused on all the wrong things. And I've seen this happen with people starting businesses, where you see a lot of businesses start to fail. So that's word to the wise. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to start something, your number one focus is to sell the service, sell the product, sell the thing, and then worry about the blinds and the paint and the carpets and the furniture and everything after.
Yeah, because it's easy to have, and even this is in everybody's daily productivity. It's like, you know, they feel like they've had a lot of activity today, been super busy, you know, but there was no actual accomplishment in significant terms. You know, like there was no actual money brought in, or there was no projects completed, but you were busy on a whole bunch of things. And unfortunately, that's, you know, our dopamine craving mind ends up, you know, being busy, you know, whether it's, you know, work projects or social media, and we're chasing the wrong rewards in most cases.
Yeah. On that note, this is where I think you created some of your programs and your books. First one being the Perfect Day Formula. Is this what it's about for an entrepreneur, how they go around structuring their day and what to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some of it's mindset, some of it's habits, some of it's the morning routine. And you know, that was my first book, and I didn't know what I was doing when I wrote it. And so I had patched together like, you know, 25 different essays on productivity and personal development. And it wasn't a book. And so I went and got the help of an outside editor. I sent him 300 pages. He sent me back 115 pages, but he didn't send me back the 200 hours of my life that it took me to create those other 200 pages that he cut. Right. But by the end of 9 rounds of editing, we had a book that has, you know, we've sold close to 100,000 copies of that book, all self-published and self-marketed and everything. And it had a resurgence during the pandemic, because it came out in 2016 and had a resurgence during the pandemic when a lot of people started working from home, and it really helped them get control over their lives and their days, because the whole foundation of the book is what I call the 3C formula, which is control what you can, cope with what you can't control, and concentrate on what counts. And this comes from Stoic philosophy and teachings of Epictetus. And it's like, you can only control the internals, right? You can control your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. And you can't control the weather. You can't control your boss. You can't control traffic. You can't control who won in sports last night. You can't control that. You can only control your reaction to those external factors. And so we applied that to the course of the day. You have the greatest control in the morning. So we showed people how to set up their mornings to be as productive as possible. Right. Then you have to cope with the chaos of the afternoon, kids vomiting at school and people on your team bringing you emergencies and fires you got to put out. Now, you need to be prepared for that, but you never know exactly what the chaos is going to be. And then finally, concentrate on what counts. When I grew up, it was everybody worked during the day, 9 to 5 generally, and you came home and you concentrated on what counts in the evening, which was your family. Now, things are a little bit more blurred today, but that was essentially the premise of the book. Control what you can, cope with what you can't control, concentrate on what counts, and then use these tools like we have 7 steps to building good habits and your morning routine and that sort of stuff, and a bit of evening routine in there that allowed people to come into the book just feeling like their life was chaos, and then go, oh, if I'd be more proactive and less reactive, I can actually take back control of my energy, my time, my productivity, my freedom, my family, fitness, faith, whatever it was that they wanted to. And so that was the foundation. The other books came as a result of, getting 1,000 questions at seminars and on Amazon reviews of, well, what happens if you're this? What happens if your day is like this? What about, the weekends, and so on and so forth? Because the perfect day formula really should have been 7 different days, right? So it was a learning experience, but that was the main message of the first book that, has really helped a lot of people.
Man, 100,000 books, bro. That's a lot.
Yeah, we sell it a lot of ways, right? So, speaking engagements, lots, you have 500 people in the room, great. You buy 500 copies of the book. We have the Perfect Day Kit, which I've sent you, which is an orange box. It's my life's work in a box. It helps people build their vision and their habits in another level. And so we probably sold 20,000 of those things alone over the years. A lot of this is through digital marketing too, through our email list. And, we sell on Amazon, we sell on our own website, we sell, other people promote it. Yeah, it's just that hustle, right? Like I wrote this book so that people would read it. I didn't write this book just so I can put it up on my bookshelf or, claim to be an author. I really believe it's a very important book for people to read. So we hustle hard to get that in people's hands. Awesome. And I've probably been interviewed 700 times on podcasts promoting the book. Yeah. Because I mentioned this guy before, Dan Kennedy. I got a little bit of coaching from him just before my book release, and he's released probably 20 books, the No BS Entrepreneur series. And
that's where I think I know the name.
Yeah. Dan Kennedy has got No BS Time Management, No BS Ruthless Management of People and Profits, No BS Direct Marketing, No BS Sales. Yeah. All this stuff. He's a cranky old walrus of a man, which is, but he's very influential in the internet marketing world. And so Dan said, listen, when I have a new book come out, I try and this is old, right? This dates it a little bit. I go on as many teleseminars as I possibly can with my clients, because each time I do a teleseminar, it sells about 100 books. And so I just said, okay, well, listen, if I can do 100 podcasts and sell 100 books on every podcast, which is not how it worked, that'd be 10,000 books. Of course, a podcast, you can have somebody in his mom's basement with 25 listeners. And I did a few of those. I also did a few big ones that did sell a lot of books and lead to some great opportunities. So I pounded the pavement. That's probably the best way to describe an entrepreneur. They're going to pound the pavement to get their solution into other people's hands. Like Sarah Blakely, who had created Spanx, she pounded the pavement and went into all these department stores to get, buyers to buy Spanx when she wasn't necessarily broke, because she came from a pretty good background. She had a real job and all that sort of stuff, but she's the consummate entrepreneur. And, she's a mother of 4 now. And, you look at her and she's not like a bro type entrepreneur, obviously, but that's an entrepreneur for sure.
Yeah. I just heard the story of the founders of Airbnb. the other day. I don't know if you've heard the story, but
Yeah, they were sleeping on the air mattresses or whatever, right?
yeah, and they couldn't pay rent, and they got together, these two guys and the designers, and they're like, all right, how do we design our way out of this? And they're like, well, we got this extra room with air mattresses. Why don't we rent out the room? Because there was a big design conference coming to town and hotels were sold out. And boom, it kicked off. And then it wasn't a success after that. There were a few failures after that, right? And then they thought, well, maybe the business is just taking a transaction fee. And then they recognized the issue with people exchanging money and so on and so on and so forth, right? So really interesting story. But when you listen to the story, they failed several times. They kept pushing and pounding the pavement and just sort of working on the on what they're trying to achieve. And then eventually it hit. Then eventually all of a sudden they had that market interest and investors started to come along. But you hear the story all the time with successful businesses and successful entrepreneurs, which is what you said. I started with nothing. I had to go sell. I had to have something to sell, right? So I sold this, right? Someone bought it. I was like, oh, let me do that again, right? Yeah. And so on and so forth. And then we went through a number of renditions and failures and obstacles and challenges and bumps and speed bumps along the way. But we just kept on pushing. And the number one thing that sort of came through this, and this is sort of my opinion, I'm the only person that I can count on right now to go and sell this. Because at some point you don't have sales teams and stuff like that. No one else is going to do it. I have to do it. Right. And that's why I have to be the leader and the salesperson and the marketer and the customer service person, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to hit some failures along the way. And hopefully what we do is we take that as an opportunity to grow. This is what I'm going to ask you. In today's world, let's call them the snowflake generation. Are we missing, like, do people still have the grits, the tenacity? Are we seeing society and generations or cultures losing the ability to be an entrepreneur because what it takes to be an entrepreneur is that hustle, is that pounding the pavement, and people don't want to do it anymore. People are too instant in their gratification, and it's the line of least resistance. It's stressful. I'm not up for it. What are your thoughts to that?
I'm a big believer in the young generation in a way. It's in, I have a client right now. The company is a split of hardworking 22 and 25-year-olds, and then the 25-year-olds that, want to work for 2 hours and then go off for 3 hours and then work for an hour and then, come back for go off to the gym and the juice bar for 3 hours. And it's this crazy dichotomy of there's definitely still those hardcore entrepreneurs who are willing to work and hustle and pound the pavement. But there's a lot of people of many ages, I'm 47, 48. I can't remember. I'm 48 now. That's right. Mm-hmm. And, I know people that are not great workers. And I do believe that there's still a lot of hard workers out there. I'm fortunate that just because of the people that I spend my time with, the business that I'm in, the network that I've cultivated, that most of the young people that I know are hard workers. They're, I know so many, I know a bunch of 25-year-olds that have way more money than me because, they were in the right place at the right time. They are just, so tuned in with technology. And, they had a bit of luck on their side. Sure.
Just killers.
And then you also hear the stories of, inner cities and many cities in America and the drug use and all this sort of stuff. And I only see it on Twitter because that's really the only kind of news consumption that I have. I don't watch television, but, there's definitely a lot of people out there that are going down the wrong path. But I'm still optimistic that there's enough people that are going down the right path. And, so I was on a meeting today with our marketing team, and we had an outside consultant there, and he goes, we were talking about generating AI images because I have some pretty, I'm working with this company on my Instagram, and they've created some pretty cool AI images of me. And we were talking about how the one guy said, listen, if you go on Amazon Kindle right now, there's over 500 books that are full of prompts for AI. And, a lot of that is driven by young people who are really, they were really into crypto the last couple of years, and now they're really into AI, and they were into NFTs, and then they realized that was kind of a joke. And now they're into this new stuff. And so there's that group of individuals who are heavy into the tech, that are young, that are going to do some big things. Hopefully they're good. It's not guaranteed, but there's definitely a lot of young guys, and I know a lot of young guys in the Bitcoin world. And so I'm just skewed into who I know.
Right.
But there's certainly, obviously I live in Cancun. I see a lot of people coming down here, and it's like, I don't understand how do you have the money to come down here? It's insane. I mean, like, you just look like you don't do anything. Right. So you never know. There's 8 billion people in this world. It gets a little hard to generalize exactly.
I like the way you handle that, or respond to that, which is, it's not a generational thing; it's a personality thing, right?
It is, and
there's killers out there, and there's non-killers out there, and we do live in a world which is easier to be soft, but at the end of the day,
it's an environment thing, right? Because the environment has become softer over time. Like, you can find a way in Canada and America to be on, in government programs and get a lot of money. I've heard, if you do the right government programs, you can get $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. And so you could sit at home with a giant television. Giant televisions are cheap, your Xbox or whatever they play these days, and order Uber Eats all day long and never leave your house, and, smoke cheap weed or whatever it is you order from the place that delivers us. That's an entire world that exists, and it's foreign to me because I'm not involved in any of it, but that is available, that wasn't available to kings 100 years ago, 200 years ago, et cetera. So it's an environment that is not set up for success. That's for sure.
It's true. And, I actually heard the stat the other day. I think it was Kevin O'Leary that was talking about it, which is there's a mass percentage of 24 to 56-year-old males in North America that are not working. And a little bit of what you described, they don't have to. You can be on the subsidized, or on the grants, or on the subsidized income. You can live at home, not do anything. And, also you start to get into some of the, as you were saying, crypto, it's a little different today, but there were kids at 22 years old that were making 50, 75,000 just in trading crypto. Yeah. So do you want to go work as a server, or do you want to sit at home doing that?
Right. Exactly. You're going to work any type of manual labor. And unfortunately, between, opioids and weed and the edibles and all that sort of stuff, like, a lot of these individuals, probably can't get a job, unfortunately. Right. So, that's a whole other world that I don't have firsthand experience with. Mm-hmm. But what I do have firsthand experience with is that there are still some hard workers out there. They're definitely hustlers, and my only hope is that they put that energy to good use and build businesses that are helpful, for sure.
Agreed. The world needs more teachers, which are thought leaders, and we need more business owners, leaders that are going to start to contribute to this world. Totally agree. There was I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me in a second. So with that being said, tell me a little bit about the Unstoppable Entrepreneur. What are some of the lessons that we're going to get out of that book?
Well, that was my kind of hero's journey story. And, I'm not a perfect person, and any problems I've had in life are from my own doing, right? I'm an extreme personal responsibility person. So everything is my personal responsibility. If it is to be, it's up to me. And when I screw up, it's also my fault. So when I was living in Toronto in 2006, I was suffering from my introverted tendencies. I was a binge drinker. I, didn't do any type of journaling or any of the, I guess what people call it. I didn't have any outputs really. I didn't talk a lot, to a few friends and to my personal training clients. But other than that, I didn't really, I let all my problems collect in my head. And so anyways, I had these crippling anxiety attacks. So the first one was on New Year's Day of 2006. And I went to Toronto General. It might have been Toronto Western or Toronto General. And I walked in and said I was having a heart attack. they took me to the back of the room, an hour later, they're like, no, you're fine. You just, you just don't drink 14 beers on New Year's Eve, and dummy. And, so basically I went home. And then 3 months later, I did another binge drinking stint and had a 6-week anxiety attack where I literally felt like I was having a heart attack for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 weeks. I could sleep from about 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. And then I woke up and tingling and, from my top of my head to the end of my fingertips and tight chest, elevated heart rate, couldn't breathe properly. And went back to St. Mike's Hospital, which is, right downtown, and sat in the emergency room for a few hours. And they gave me a chest x-ray and a chest monitor and all the heart rate monitor. And they told me there's nothing physically wrong with me, which was something that my brain needed to hear. And then I kind of got out of that anxiety spell and, had to fight it off 1 or 2 more times. But then the rest of the book, so it starts off with that story. And then the rest of the book is about, kind of the mindset and the health changes that, someone should make, but also getting your vision clear in your mind about what you want to accomplish and building out a roadmap for success. And then having these meditations and journaling and all these types of outputs so that you don't collect a whole bunch of clutter in your head. And if you collect too much clutter in your head, then you get anxiety and stress. And so it's really for the stressed out entrepreneur, because ever since I've shared that story, I get emails from people at like 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday that they're in the emergency room saying, oh my God, I heard you talk about this and now I know what you're feeling. And so I wrote that book so that people hopefully don't get to that stage.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you, well, maybe it's a loaded question, but, or maybe you've already answered it, which is, first question, do you still suffer with panic attacks and anxiety today?
No, I could shotgun a monster and you could give me the worst news in the world and I wouldn't have anxiety.
And what are some of the things that you do that you think has contributed to you not going through that anxiety or suffering with anxiety?
I think a lot of it is stoicism. So Stoic philosophy, the understanding that you only control what your internal thoughts, words, and deeds. Breathing, proper breathing is key. So I don't do like any form of meditation other than in the morning after I've done my work, a work block. I just sit in the dark and I sit there and I breathe and I don't care what I think about. I'm not like, oh, I can't think about anything. But I just breathe properly because, most of us are hunched over a computer or something all day long. And that contributes to short, shallow breaths. And that's like almost like hyperventilating. And when you do that, you blow off a lot of carbon dioxide, and that leads to adrenaline increasing in your body, and adrenaline increases your heart rate and your stress. So the posture and the breathing is a big problem in a lot of people. So simply by breathing in through your nose, holding that, exhaling for a long time, you do that for a couple of minutes and you can really reduce the stress hormones in your body. But for a long time, I didn't even know how to breathe. I was 30 years old. I had no idea how to breathe. I'm not even sure how I stayed alive, but I didn't know how to breathe. And when I fixed that, I tried yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, all this stuff. I didn't like any of it, but the learning of the breathing was really helpful. And then having outputs. So doing these podcasts is almost like a form of therapy for me, because if I just keep all my, if I just go through my entire day and I don't talk to anybody, I talk to my wife for about an hour in the morning and then a couple hours at night. But before I met her, I didn't really talk to anybody. So having journaling, doing these podcasts, writing my books, writing all my email newsletters, getting the thoughts out of my head is really helpful for me, because otherwise I would just have your grandma's attic where there's 1,000,001 things in there collecting dust. And if you just have your brain all jumbled up with stuff, then you get kind of stressed out. So those are the things that helped me overcome that. And it was probably about 1.5 years after the anxiety attacks, like every 3 months, I'd feel it coming on. And, it was almost like a weekend battle to some crazy, what's that?
You could recognize it and then start to sort of get ahead of it.
It'd be something that would trigger it, right? Like one time I was at my chiropractor. So I lived in Roncesvalles area of Toronto. Yeah. So that area up by High Park. And I went to my chiropractor and we were talking about how some other chiropractor in Canada was doing a neck adjustment and led to paralyzing his client. And for some reason, I was totally fine when I went in. By the time I got home to my condo, I could feel it coming on. And it was just like that weird story just kind of triggered my brain. And, I did a lot of breathing over that weekend. And, by Monday, I had forgotten about it and it was gone. But there was probably like over the year and a half after the main anxiety attacks, there was probably a couple of things like that. And I don't, but there would be other things that didn't trigger it that just were way more stressful and way more serious. But they didn't bother it. So it's difficult to understand. And, my belief is politically incorrect about anxiety, but it's kind of like it's self-induced. And I laugh about my anxiety now, like, cause I'll never have it again. It's something that anybody can overcome. It's a lot of hard work to overcome it. There are tools that will help you get through it. I never used any medications, and I encourage people to stay as far away from them as possible. If your doctor says, man, you're going to harm yourself if you don't take some medication, then by all means, listen to your doctor. But if you can do the hard work, you can overcome this through the breathing and the outlets and all that sort of stuff, and reducing the stimulus that causes your anxiety attacks. I don't touch depression because I think that is like much more medically, difficult to deal with. But anxiety, we bring it upon ourselves, and we just need to remove ourselves from the anxiety inducing situations and start really, like, if you don't have big problems, you end up with anxiety. Like when you have real problems, like you don't have time to be anxious. You have to like come up with solutions. And it's, I had like everything going for me in my life when I had anxiety. I was making more money than ever. I was in best shape of my life than ever. I just made up a bunch of problems in my head, I guess. And so it's not having real problems is what causes people to kind of get into those anxiety spirals. I think they make up problems.
I agree. Yeah. And, I agree with what you define, which is there's a difference between being clinically diagnosed with anxiety or depression where, you need something to intervene.
Yeah.
But that is a very small percentage of the population. Like if you actually look at the stats, like it's not the majority, it's a very small group that end up with that clinical diagnosis. Anxiety is also very normal, right? Anxiety is here to get us to move a little bit, right? And I tell people this, and they, sometimes I get the people going, oh my God, you're right. And then sometimes people sort of have a hard time wrapping their head around it. But anxiety and excitement is the exact same emotion. It's from the same part of your brain, right? You're going on a vacation. You're like, oh, I'm excited. I'm going to give a speech. Oh, a little nervous, a little anxious, but fuck, I'm excited, right?
Yeah.
Got to sell new books. I'm going to launch a new book. I got a new book coming up. Fuck, I hope it's...
or like a first date. You're excited, but you're anxious as heck.
Right. Yeah. Now, the difference is the perceived outcome, and then what you describe, spiral thinking, which is one goes in negative thought, negative thought, negative thought. And breath work and perspective and managing perceptions and focusing on the objective. And I like what you also described, which is the environment, being aware of that, what's inducing that anxiety, can all be managed by ourselves. We don't need this mystical thing to make us feel better. It's management of the anxiety is the outcome, not the thing you do to not feel. We feel first, we experience the anxiety, we get the excitement, and then it's what I do with it. And breath has been shown to do so.
It's a removal of this thing would just save so many people from anxiety. That's for sure. The phone.
Have you ever read the book Breath or Breathe by
It is on my list. Yeah, my friend Joe Polish gave me, he said, listen, there's this breath book. I could a couple of them that I need to get around to. So it's we have a mastermind that we do down here 3 times per year. And we have a breathwork instructor come in on the first day and take all of our attendees through it.
Yeah. You got to check out his book. It's probably one of the best breath books out there. Joe Polish, he's the Genius Network guy. He's one.
I've known Joe for about 15 years now, and he's a fascinating individual. And he's got a new book out called What's in It for Them, I think. And he's just a wonderful, he's probably the most connected person I know. And he's just a really generous individual.
Yeah. I know a few members, and I'm looking to some sort of coaching group or a coach, or I'm at that next level. I've gone through my last few years of coaches, and I'm looking for that peer group. And someone said, hey, check out the Genius Network. I think it'd be right up your alley.
I mean, it's very giving, wonderful people. And, if you're like, I was in it for a while, but I'm not really like I'm going to go up and talk to strangers type person. And so I kind of, like I said, I've known Joe for a long time, and, the content of his meetings is good and the people are amazing, but I just didn't do the work in the network group. And,
it's not worth it.
I have some friends that I met there and I'm still friends with, but I mostly hung around the people that I already knew. And so, but Joe is awesome. The group is awesome. And, I think you would benefit from at least checking out one of their annual events at least.
Well, I'm going to. I was supposed to go to one, I think, in November, but I wasn't.
Yeah, that's the annual event time.
Yeah, so I got invited by one of the members. So anyway,
good.
Next time this year. I can't believe we're at the top of the hour, man. This conversation flowed really fast and quickly. Enjoyed, as I said, or as they say, cutting the rug with you. So, Craig, let me ask you this. At the end of the episode, we come to the most important question, which is the better human question. But before we go there, for the audience, if they wanted to pick up your book, if they want to learn more about some of the coaching and the offers that you have, where can they find you and how can they learn more about you?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram. I'm on there almost every day. So Real Craig Ballantyne is my Instagram handle. If they want to pick up the book, the book that we didn't talk about is actually my best book, which is Perfect Week Formula. So if you go to perfectweekformula.com, it's the book that we ended up writing because of the 150,000 questions that we got about perfect day formula. And, what about this? What about that? So it's the most comprehensive productivity book, especially for entrepreneurs. And then, if somebody wants to email me, I actually don't get a lot of emails. So if somebody wants to email me at craig@craigballantyne.com, by all means, shoot me an email. I actually am one of those people who like email.
Amazing. All right. At the end of the episode, it's the most important question. What do you think we could all do to be better humans tomorrow?
Get clarity about where you want to be in life and what matters to you. Because in all my conversations that I've done in coaching, people will say that they want something, but when you look at their actions, they're not congruent with that. And that leads to the misalignment and stress within them. So you have to get clarity about what really, truly matters to you. And when you understand that, then you can build the blueprint to achieving exactly what you want. And you stay on the straight line to success and you stay out of trouble. So clarity is the most important thing that people need. And that's the first place we start whenever I'm chatting with somebody.
That, man. Love that. Great advice and great perspective. All right, Craig, we are going to have to wrap it up now, but super appreciate your time. And we might have to do a part 2 to this because I think there's a lot more. We could talk about the perfect week formula.
Yes, exactly.
And get into that. To the audience, go check out craigballantyne.com. Check out the perfect week formula, the perfect day formula, Unstoppable Entrepreneur. You've also got a podcast called Early to Rise, which is if the audience looking for more podcasts to listen to, definitely go check out Craig's. To the audience, once again, don't forget to like today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.